Evening. Welcome to the May 22nd Planning Commission meeting. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Greenberg?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Greenberg.
Here.
Hicks.
Here.
Mako is absent. Pollier.
Here.
Shapaka.
Here.
Suriano.
Here.
Tamarkin.
Here.
We have no additions or corrections to the agenda. So the next order of business is the approval of the last two meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Greenberg.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been regularly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Greenberg.
Yes.
Pollier.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Shapaka.
Yes.
Suriano.
Yes.
Tamarkin.
Yes.
Next order of business is to swear in the applicants and speakers. Please direct your attention at this time to our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are now at the public hearing portion of the meeting. The public hearing will operate as follows. Administrative staff will make a presentation or comment on the application. The applicant or their representative may then make a presentation or comment on the application. The applicant has 10 minutes to present, and additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. Public comment will then be open for 3 minutes allowed per speaker. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. Speakers must complete a speaker slip and come to the podium and state their name and address. The applicant will then be given 10 minutes to comment. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. If there is more than one application pending for a particular address, the presentation on each application may be consolidated and presented as one. At this time, will persons wishing to present testimony this evening please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, state I do. Thank you.
We will now move to the applications portion of the meeting. We do have two applicants tonight, and I would like to ask the clerk to please read in the first application into the record.
V-0008-2024 to consider a variance application to vary DR-004-1995 Stone Ridge Plaza Master Sign Plan for property located at 323 Stone Ridge Lane, parcel ID 025-010785, current zoning CC2, Stone Ridge Plaza, Cinemark Movies 16, Grant Woods applicant.
Thank you. We will now turn the meeting over to the administration for a presentation.
This is a variance application for requirements within the Stone Ridge Plaza Master Sign Plan for Cinemark Movie Theater. The site was previously zoned Community Commercial Modified, as the application was filed prior to the new zoning ordinance being adopted. Here is a history of the Stone Ridge Plaza MSP. In 1995, Phase 1 was approved, which contained signage requirements for Cinemark and the other anchor tenants. In 1996, Phase 2 was approved and contained requirements for tenants that weren't addressed in Phase 1. And then in 2018, a revised MSP was approved. The requirements in this new MSP superseded all the previous requirements except for anchor tenant signage, which is why the 1995 MSP still applies to Cinemark. The applicant is requesting approval of two variances to MSP requirements in the 1995 version. The 2018 MSP does not have any requirements that apply to this tenant space. The MSP requires that Cinemark have a 13 by 6 foot wall sign that is outlined in exposed neon and located 10 feet above finished grade. It also requires that Cinemark have a 60 square foot sign that reads Movie 16. The applicant would like to permanently remove the Movie 16 sign and replace the main wall sign with a new 140 square foot wall sign. Both of these requests require variances since they do not align with the MSP. Here is an aerial photo that shows the location of the existing and proposed signage. The letters A and B show the location of the existing main sign and the one that is proposed today. And the letter C notes the location of the Movie 16 sign. Here are photos that show the existing signs and the proposed sign. The existing signs align exactly with the MSP, while the new sign is larger, a different shape, and contains the name of the business. Here are the specific variances that are being requested, both of which are located on page 3 of the MSP. The first is that Cinemark shall have a wall-mounted Movie 16 sign located 32 feet above finished floor with a letter height of 3 feet and a total signage area of 60 square feet. The applicant proposes permanently removing this sign. The next requirement is that Cinemark shall have a 13 by 6 foot sign with a clear plexiglass face at 10 feet above finished grade. The sign should be outlined in exposed 15 millimeter neon. The applicant proposes removing this sign and replacing it with a 140 square feet sign with a red plexiglass face. The new sign will be illuminated with internal LED sticks. Here is the variance criteria for signage. In order for sign variances to be approved, it must be shown that the applicant has encountered practical difficulties, and this is the criteria that is relevant for that. Staff has no objection to the variances. The MSP requirements for the Cinemark signs haven't been updated since 1995, while the majority of other tenants in the shopping plaza had their requirements updated in 2018. The requirements are very specific and difficult to meet if not installing a sign that's like for like. Additionally, the sign is not visible from the right-of-way and is only visible from within the shopping plaza itself. However, the proposed sign is greatly larger than what the MSP allows and also what standard code allows, which is a total of 50 square feet for all wall signage on one site. And with that, I turn things back over to Planning Commission.
We will now open public comment on the application, beginning with the applicant. If you'd like to make comments, please approach the podium and state your name, address, in relation to the project. And you do have 10 minutes for comments.
Thank you. My name's Dan Leathery. This is Grant Woods. We're with Casto at 250 South Civic Center Drive, Columbus, Ohio. We're representing the applicant today. First, we'd like to thank staff for your time reviewing and for your support of our application. We'd also like to thank the Planning Commission for your time this evening and hopefully ask for your support of this application as well. We think that the variance requested today is a relatively small change in the total square footage from what exists on the building today. As staff mentioned, it's not visible from any public right-of-way and shouldn't be detrimental to public safety or welfare or any of the surrounding businesses. The master sign plan for this portion of the center, which hasn't been updated in almost 30 years, is being updated as part of this application. We're frankly thrilled to see Cinemark reinvesting in the center and in the city of Gahanna. Obviously, the theater industry is ever evolving. There's challenges faced there, and we're happy to see that they're reinvesting here and continuing to operate. Grant and I are happy to answer any questions you may have on our application. We'd appreciate your support of our application tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hang around for questions. But is there anyone from the public that would like to comment? Seeing none, we will close the public comment and open it up to questions from the commission. And we'll change it up and start on my right, Mr. Greenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. Number one, the branding that you're proposing to put on the sign, is that consistent with Cinemark everywhere that they operate?
Yes.
Okay. And then the movie 16 that's coming down, is there repairs that need to be made to the building? Or does the sign just come down?
That'll be minimal, so we'll be patching the facade to prevent water intrusion, but
That's it? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Suriano.
Yes, just a couple clarifications. So in lieu of the movie 16 sign, is there anything going in its place, or is it just coming down?
It's just coming down.
Okay. And then for the AB sign, the Cinemark, it looks like I was just curious if you all happen to know, I was looking as we were sitting here, if Cinemark has any precedent for either signage that, so right now, I have a concern, and that is, it's more of a, we're basically fitting a square cabinet into an architectural feature that's like arched and rounded. And I was just curious if there was any precedent for Cinemark signage that maybe either reflects kind of something that is more rounded, like the existing sign that is there, or that is, just an expression of the actual logo with the C without the square cabinet.
I don't believe there's any precedent. I think this is fairly consistent with Cinemark's branding throughout the country.
Got it. A rounded cabinet might actually make it so that you don't need a variance, but I'm trusting you all that there isn't precedent for something like that. So those are my questions.
Mr. Tamarkin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we take a look at the middle picture here, the B, underneath it, on the left and the right on the pillars are two poster boxes or shadow boxes with posters. Would those qualify as part of the square footage required for the variance? I guess probably for Maddie or Mr. Leckford. I went and looked today. Those aren't permanent. Those don't come and go. It's a
Yes, those signs are actually in the MSP as well, and it's my understanding that those are remaining, and there isn't any maximum size requirement in the MSP for this tenant. It's just the size is based on individual signs. So there's no overall square footage requirement.
So by those staying, they're good. They're in the original sign package. Good. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chappaqua.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to echo Mr. Soriano's comment. The square in the archway is such a dominant feature that it really needs to be a little softened and round. Would there any be consideration, did you keep the box sign for Cinemark and actually take the C and make that an individual box so that it would complement the archway? Is that a possibility?
It could be asked, but we can't speak on behalf of the tenant, and so this is the plan that has been proposed and requested today.
So as you eventually go down that avenue, so to help sell that, the issue of the square footage, I think would kind of go away, but if there was a variance to make that even larger, so there could be a freestanding C that would complement the arch, I think that would be, I would be more favorable of the object. No other questions, Mr. Chair?
Ms. Pollyea.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo the same concerns that two of my colleagues just mentioned, especially with regard to that sign. And I'm just not understanding why more, it just seems like, I don't know if you know, maybe you don't know, was more thought given to how the signage would or would not complement the existing architecture?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
So what we were talking about before, putting like a square in an arched area, has the tenant, did they consider anything that would maybe make it fit better? Were there any other considerations that were made or that were thought about? Even just like rounding the corners at the top would maybe soften it a little bit and make it fit in a little bit better. I get the need to make it big. I understand that concern, but I'm just wondering what else could be done to make it fit better and with the existing architecture. When that shopping center was designed, I know that was one of the lead tenants that were there, and that whole area was designed for their signs, obviously. I don't have any objection to changing them, but I guess I would just want to know what else might have been considered except for that. Maybe you don't know, but.
I don't have the answer to that. I know that it's fairly standard for their branding that they use elsewhere around the country. There may be cost prohibitions to designing something specific to that archway, but we understand your concerns.
And then my other question involves the movie 16 sign. Why does that need to come down?
As a part of the consolidation, we're asking for a lot more signage in this area, so I think that helps by reducing the total square footage, by pulling the movie 16 sign down, and just only having the main Cinemark sign.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I just have one question. Can you clarify who the parties to the master sign plan are? So it's between Cinemark as the tenant and Casto as the landlord?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And since you're here, can I presume that you're okay with the tenant's request?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this application? And I did not ask anyone to do that, Mr. Soriano.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept item V-0008-2024.
Is there a second?
Second, Chewbacca?
So we have a motion by Mr. Soriano, second by Mr. Chewbacca to approve the application. Is there any discussion on the motion? Starting on my right.
Mr. Chair, I fundamentally have no issue with the replacement of the sign or removal of movie 16. I'm looking at different versions of Cinemark signage that's either internally lit and it's just the letter, the logo, some different options. I think that box is entirely too big for that space, and hence the variance. So I'm not going to be in favor of the variance. I'd much rather see some of the other options that Cinemark has on some of their other projects in this location.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you look at the old logo on the left here, or the old signage, not real sure what that is or what the intent of that was. I get those little dots around it are light bulbs, kind of that old 1950, 1960 theater look. So I understand why that comes down, and I'm a big proponent of branding. When you look at the signage, it certainly looks like the way the plaza was designed, that the signage should fit under the arched windows in that box in there. And this is much larger. But I'm going to trust Cinemark that, like I said, I am a big proponent of letting tenants and vendors use their signs and their logos. So I will vote in favor of this, but I do agree specifically with the two architects on the panel that it really doesn't fit in there exactly right.
Any further discussion, Ms. Pollier?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not one of the architects on the panel, but I also disagree with the way that sign was designed to fit in that space, and I would like to see Cinemark kind of come up with something else that fits a little bit better, that softens it a little bit better. I'm very thrilled that Cinemark wants to reinvest in the plaza. I think that's great for the community, great for the city, and I'm glad that they want to do that. I just would like them to go back to the drawing board a little bit and just see what else they can come up with that would just make it look better, whether or not a variance is required. That's not necessarily the point, just to make it possibly look better within the constraints of what's already there. So I also will not be voting in favor of this variance.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As an architect, sometimes we present things and we need somebody to step up for us. And when the person that designed this, I don't think designed it for this particular application or this spot. So I will not be in favor of it, and I bet you the designer for them will come up with something maybe even a little bit bigger and a little bit more complimentary, and they will be a little bit more happier with it. So I, again, will not be in favor of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Greenberg?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I said, when I first looked at the application, and I am not an architect, but I thought it just didn't work. And And I'm glad to hear from the architects that they're thinking along those lines. I will also not be in support of the variance. Thank you.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Suriano,
No.
Chapaca,
No.
Greenberg,
No.
Hicks,
Yes.
Pollyea, Tamarkin.
Yes.
Motion fails. You can speak with the clerk after the meeting for next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next applicant has 2 applications, and I'd like to ask the clerk to please read them into the record.
DR-0008-2024 to consider a design review application for site plan and landscaping for 21.67 acres for property located at 1333 Research Road, parcel ID 025-011747, current zoning OCT, Streams Edge Properties LLC, Anthony Rocco applicant, and application V-0009-2024 to consider a variance application to vary sections 1155.04, C1A, parking setback, and 1171.03, section G, chain link fence prohibited in front yard for property located at 1333 Research Road, parcel ID 025-011747, current zoning OCT, Streams Edge Properties LLC, Anthony Rocco applicant.
Thank you. We'll now turn it over to the administration for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we just heard, the property is zoned OCT. That means that this request was submitted before the new zoning code was adopted, May 1st. On the screen here, let me see if I can. Laser pointer. So everything here in the light gray is OCT. Here is the Dayton Freight piece of property. This is Blatt Boulevard. Just to the west here, the main roadway is Taylor Station. We're just to the east of Taylor Station. Again, Dayton Freight. So this particular request, there's no buildings or anything involved. It's a parking lot expansion. The parking is for their employees as along with their tractor and trailer spaces. There's also the accessory types of activities that come with that, landscaping improvements, lighting improvements, stormwater as well. The expansion is occurring on 10 acres. We'll take a look at the site and go over a brief history of the property. 2 phases, a future phase which will consist of 81 trailer spaces. The initial phase of the project will be 55 employee spaces, 40 plus tractor spaces, and 87 trailer spaces. This site, Dayton Freight, has come before Planning Commission a couple times in the past. In 2016, there was an addition, and we'll take a look at that. So here's the site plan. So in 2016, here in green, a lot of this was existing, but if a memory serves me correctly, it was the northern portion that was new. 2021, they did a minor parking lot expansion. In between the 2016 and 2021 applications, there was an administrative approval for tree clearing, and that occurred on the 10 plus acres, 10 or so acres under review for tonight. So here is what's subject to this request, our 2024 request. Again, this is all parking. This is the first phase that consisted of employee parking in this area, and then the tractor and trailer spaces throughout. And then phase 2 here in white, that would again be more tractor spaces, and they'd be adding an access here onto Blatt Boulevard. There are 2 variances that are necessary. The first would be to our parking setback. So in OCT for industrial uses, a 45-foot front yard parking setback is required. They're requesting 20 feet. It just so happens that 20 feet is what the current code would require. Existing conditions on the property, this parking lot right here, this has, I believe, a 24-foot setback. So there are existing conditions on this property and on Blatt Boulevard with similar setbacks of, less than 40 feet. The second is to chain link fences in the front yard. Our commercial properties have a little bit more freedom for the type of fence, the height of fence, but it doesn't allow it to encroach in the front yard. They say that the variance is necessary to provide some security, makes sense with all the materials, the trucks on site. Staff looked at this beforehand, didn't have any objections, went out there this morning to take a look, found, I think, about 5 or 6 properties kind of in this corridor that have similar conditions, similar meaning chain link fences in the front yard. Here's a zoom in on one of the sheets of the final development plan. Here's the area that the parking setback would apply. Again, this is their 50 or so spaces of new employee parking, and it only applies in this particular area. One thing about Blatt Boulevard is that, I'm not doing that, it's just the technology there, is that there is quite a bit of green space between the actual pavement of the road and where the right-of-way ends. It's about 30 feet. So it's pavement, 30 feet of right-of-way, and then another 20 feet for which is setback. So in reality, from pavement, it would have about a 50-foot setback from the road. Oops. Here in yellow is location of the front yard fence. This is right on the property line. There may be other areas where the fence would encroach in the front yard. Again, this is a large piece of property. It doesn't really translate real well to putting up site plans on here. So again, just trying to show that where the fence would be located, again, it would be on the front, right on the property line. Here is an image of the fence. It is a chain link fence. It's a 6-foot fence. It would have barbed wire. Barbed wire fencing is allowed, so it's not a variance to the height. It's not a variance to necessarily the style. It's really the location. Because it is a chain link fence, it can't be in the front yard. Again, saw about 5 or 6 different properties in this area with somewhat similar conditions. I don't think I saw any properties that would have had the fence right on the front yard setback line, or I should say property line, but there certainly were plenty of fences in the front yard. 2 different types of variances, so there's 2 different criteria. The first one would apply to parking. This is the one that we see with most variances. Are there special circumstances or conditions applying to the land? Would there be any detrimental effects? Again, going out in this area, it does seem to be in character with the existing development patterns in the area. There were no objections from any of the additional departments we have reviewing as far as any concerns with the location of the fence, obstructing any easements or any governmental services. And that I would also say that since this is parking and not fencing, that should be talking about parking, sorry, is that, again, the code is changing to 20 feet. So I think that is a special condition, again, if this application were submitted today. A whole bunch of fence criteria, not going to go over all these, again, but some of the same things here, elements to consider. Whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of governmental services, whether the character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered. Again, driving through that area, it does seem to be consistent with the development character. The design review criteria, I would just focus on Design Review District 4 here. It does have some language that's relevant to parking lots within our industrial areas. It says that it shall accommodate employees and not degrade the appearance of the development. This particular request, it meets all the landscaping criteria. So even though it's behind a fence, all the necessary parking lot screening will be in place. They do meet all of those standards. Planning Commission should be concerned with screening of parking areas to minimize the visual contact. Interesting verbiage, but that's in there. Again, this would be a fence and then landscaping. So I would say in a roundabout way, by approving the variance, you're actually helping them meet that even more so. And then again, this is a provision that applies in only Design Review District 4 with property zone OCT, where Planning Commission, you can use a little bit more liberal view on the strict code requirements as far as parking and design and things of that nature. So you're given a little bit more flexibility. Staff, we do recommend approval. This is something that I know the folks at Dayton Freight have been contemplating for a while. If memory serves me correctly, I believe that's why they cleared the trees back in 2020 with the intent of building more spaces for truck parking. The use is allowed by right, whether it's OCT or if we're using our new code, innovation manufacturing. The variances don't appear to cause any detrimental effects in staff's opinion, and it's consistent with the surrounding development. And for those reasons, staff would recommend approval of both applications as submitted. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
We will now open the public comment. And if the applicant would like, please approach the podium, state your name and address and relation to the project, and you have 10 minutes for comments.
Russell Hennesofel with EMH&T, 5500 New Albany Road, Columbus, Ohio, representing Streams Edge Properties. We would like to thank staff for their consideration and their work through this process. We've been going back and forth for a couple months, making sure that we had everything good, especially we added additional trees and stuff like that to make sure that it is within the code requirements. So we definitely want to appreciate that. I'll just take a couple minutes to talk about the reasons for the additional, why we're expanding. With the Etna Parkway area, with all the additional warehousing and everything being built, this has increased the demand on the trucking in this location. So there is a new tenant that's going to be coming online probably fourth quarter this year, first quarter next year. That required like 30 some additional trailers to be installed at this location. So we needed to make sure that we were ready for when that happens, because it's a very good client of Dayton Freight's. So with that, the parking lot is actually a secured employee lot. Some of the drivers on this come from different facilities, so they might not be coming back in that 6 o'clock range or something like that. They might be coming back 9-ish or something like that, and it's dark out. So we wanted to make sure that they had a location that they could get to their vehicles from inside a fenced area to their vehicles and then exit a secured fence. So for security reasons and everything with, safety of the employees, we wanted to make sure that was occurring. So that's the reason why we needed, one, additional parking for the additional employees that are going to be hired, as well as just making sure that they're secured. The fence, part of the fence is we want to go around the basin. Last week, I do believe, there was a major rainstorm that occurred, about 2 inches, 3 inches of rain in this area. And if you looked, and I actually have a video of it, the road in front of this flooded. Part of it is due to some of when this was originally built in 1998, the stormwater drainage wasn't the way we do it today. We definitely did not have water quality, and the water quantity way back when, we called it parking lot ponding, but it was barely met any kind of code in today's standards. So with this, we are actually taking some of the existing terminal and we're relocating it, we're putting it in a new basin. So that basin had to be sized a little bit larger than what we'd normally do. One, to make so that way their employees aren't walking through the water to get to their trucks and everything like that. And secondly, to alleviate some of the flooding that's occurring on the roadway. To do that, we needed a little bit larger basin. With that, we had to push the fence further out. We definitely feel that with a wet pond, it should be fenced for security purposes, for kids and water don't get along typically. So we wanted to make sure for security reasons we're handling that. So because of those reasons, we had to push it outside closer to the right-of-way. Currently, we have it set at least 10 feet off of the right-of-way line currently, or off the property line, because there's a public easement. So we wanted to make sure that the public easement was not impaired by this construction of this fence to be installed. So I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment? Seeing none, we will close the public portion of this application and open it up to questions from the commission. Mr. Greenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple questions. You're adding a lot of parking space, right? So what material are you using for the parking?
The parking lot will be a aggregate or an asphalt on aggregate base. We're all curbed islands, rock mulch around with the trees and everything.
Okay, and you said the drainage, it overflowed.
Right.
So you're going to be expanding that as part of this.
Right.
Where does the pond discharge?
The pond discharges into a 42-inch pipe that's running along the road. Currently, the entire existing site, which is roughly around, if I'm not mistaken, around 13, 14 acres, drains to a 12-inch pipe that goes underneath the roadway, which the city roadway actually ties into as well. So what we're proposing to do is remove about half of that site, the existing site, and all the new, put it in the new basin, and we're detaining it further down because of the larger basin, and we're releasing it at a much slower rate into the 42-inch storm sewer.
And you know where that goes?
Yeah, they both tie into the same spot. Right after that 12-inch pipe, it turns into a 48. So they both connect right there at the same point. So we're just a little bit upstream of it.
And the pipe runs to where? Do you know?
That I don't know. It goes further south is all I'm aware of. I did not chase
So it's like a
exactly.
stormwater drain, sewer?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a city.
So it captures
public
everything.
city sewer, yeah.
And obviously, well, all the parking areas for the trailers and everything, the calculations have been made to.
Yes.
Because you're making it bigger to handle a bigger storm event.
Yep,
So
yeah.
that you don't get that flood, right?
That's correct. We are making sure that it handles the 100-year storm event all the way down to the pre-release rate for just that area. So actually, we didn't even account for the existing when we did it, so that's why the basin had to get bigger. Plus the additional, we're able to do the water quality, which was not done in previous, which is basically we're allowing the water to settle
Settle out.
over a 24-hour period in a wet pond.
Question for the city on the landscaping and all the trees, they're putting in a lot of trees. I assume that was run by Parks and Rec and all that? 'Cause I didn't see the traditional letter
Yeah.
that they
yeah.
said they reviewed.
It was. They were actually, the applicant was originally asking for a variance to landscaping that they didn't need. So yes, it was reviewed by Parks for appropriateness. Planning really looks at it for the number of plantings and that, and it met code. So yes, it was reviewed by everyone.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Suriano.
Actually, I don't have any questions.
Mr. Tamarkin.
One quick question. I assume the existing property already has fence all around it, and this is just an extension of his existing fence?
That's correct.
Including a fence on Research Road and Blatt Road already?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep, so basically, we're just enclosing the expanded site, is all we're doing.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Shapaka.
Fence. So I know this is not a very well-traveled road, so the variance is for us to put the fence in the front, which we kind of, sometimes we're hesitant to do. Is this fence decorative in any manner to where the chain link on the front is just painted black? Something that could mess up?
We could do a black chain link fence as it abuts that frontage if you wanted that. We've done that on a couple projects.
I would put that under consideration.
For the parallel portion, we would agree to be, for parallel to Black Boulevard, we will go black, and the black barbed wire as well.
Thanks for your consideration. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Pollier.
Just one question, the chain link, is that because of the security concerns?
Yes.
Are there any other types of fencing that can be used in lieu of chain link that would meet those needs?
We have tried a few different ones. Aluminum does not have the strength. Steel is problematic for maintenance purposes. And so we continuously go back to the chain link is one of the best. the material that's in these trailers is not Dade Freights. It's all the different individual companies that are shipping with them. So, you know, the security of that stuff is very important. So we don't want to kind of, you know, we can't use any kind of vinyl fencing or anything like that because it does not have that ability. I mean, that's easy to kick in and get into all the merchandise. So.
Understood. Thank you.
What other types of security features do you use? And I won't ask you to give away secrets, but
Yeah, basically all the gates have keypads, or basically, you know, they have automation on them all. There's security or cameras throughout, internal and external of the site. So probably every other light pole has a camera on it, as well as the buildings. So basically they do a lot of that type of security. And then, you know, there's all the people that are around there as well, so.
any patrols or
No.
personnel? Okay.
No security staff.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the design review?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I make a motion for approval of DR-0008-2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Tamarkin, a second by Ms. Pollier. Any discussion on the motion, Mr. Greenberg?
No, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Suriano?
No, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tamarkin?
No comment.
Mr. Chapaka?
I will be voting in favor of this. I think the landscaping is above and beyond. Thank you very much. And I actually also do appreciate the knowledge that you brought to answer the questions. I know you probably take a lot of pride in knowing so much about fences. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Pollier?
I'll also be voting in favor. I think the design is well planned, well thought out, based on the needs. So thank you for that consideration. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Roll call, please.
Tamarkin?
Yes.
Pollier?
Yes.
Chapaka?
Yes.
Suriano?
Yes.
Greenberg?
Yes.
Hicks?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the variance application?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I make a motion for approval of V-0009-2024 variance.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Tamarkin, seconded by Ms. Pollier. Any discussion on the variance motion? Mr. Greenberg?
No, Mr. Chair.
No, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tamarkin?
Just a quick comment, I think expansion is always good. We hopefully 30 or 40 new trailers and a new client also means more employees for the city of Gahanna, which we're always happy to have. So expansion is good.
Mr. Chapaka?
No comment, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Pollier?
Just one thing, I personally don't like the look of a chain link fence in the front yard of property, especially on a main road. But given the security concerns, that this is, the security concerns that were brought to our attention, and just the fact that it was well thought out, well planned, I'll also be voting in favor of this variance as well.
So my comments are, my understanding of the code is that a decorative open fence would be permitted, but anything other than that would need a variance. So even if you alter the material away from chain link to some of the other ones, you would still need a variance according to our code. So my opinion, the criteria to approve the variance are met, and I will be in support. Can we have a roll call, please?
Tamarkin?
Yes.
Pollier?
Yes.
Suriano?
Yes.
Greenberg?
Yes.
Hicks?
Yes.
Chapaka?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes the application portion of the meeting. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business. And we will turn it over to Mr. Roth for his report.
Nothing to report at this time, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Blackford.
I would just say that, again, next meeting, we'll have a few more applications in that. So they're finally coming before you. I know we've been saying for a few months, so And then from a council perspective, I would say that this week, the plat, the final plat that Planning Commission saw for Crescent down there at Tech Center by Hamilton Road, that was approved by council earlier this week. There's been some construction activities already out there. The medical building is coming along. We should start seeing additional work for the apartments here pretty soon as well. So that would be tonight's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor is not present. I have no report. And we will now turn it over to the members for final comments. Mr. Greenberg.
Nice meeting tonight, Mr. Chair. No other comments.
Mr. Suriano.
Yes. Kudos to Mr. Hicks for stepping in.
Mr. Tamarkin.
No comments.
Mr. Shabaka.
I like having the clerk read the items. I thought
Just
that
gonna
was
say that.
awesome. Good idea. Might have to do that in the future. So, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Ms. Pollier.
I will echo that as well. I thought that was a nice touch. No other comment, thank you.
I can't take credit for that. When I watch the council meetings, Mr. Van Meter reads it in, and the clerks sound a lot better than I do, so I just thought it'd be a good idea, so I can't take credit for it. Thank you, everyone, for putting up with me. The voice held out, and hopefully it will be better when it's for real next year. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a good evening.